Welcome back, guys. Back at it out here in the garage. Another welding video. I hope these are helping somebody out. Anybody that's getting into welding, helping you figure out different tips and tricks on how to weld things together. Tonight, put on a little video how to weld some thicker metal. Stay tuned. Alright, so tonight we've got some channel iron. I chopped this off piece of channel iron I have. It's about a 1/4 inch thick in the main area. In the corners, it gets almost a 1/2 inch thick. So it's definitely a thicker metal. Now my welder says it'll go up to a 1/4 inch thick, but I don't want to do it in one pass. So what I've done is I've V'd out the top edge of this channel iron. On this piece over here, I cut a notch out of it. That notch is a little bit less than a 1/4 inch wide. A little bit wider at the top. It's a little bit thicker up there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld this. I'm going to weld multiple passes through this groove here. And then I'm going to weld this solid, just the way it sits with that gap. Just to show you a couple differences on whether you want to V something out or just leave them a ways apart and weld them up that way. I prefer the V'd out method, and it's a way about everybody's going to teach you how to weld. So let's get these pieces clamped up, tacked up, and start welding them together. So we've got it clamped up in a vise. Nice and even, flush. Gonna put a tack weld over on this side, tack weld over on this side to hold it there. Now I looked at the settings on my welder, and I've got it set up about where I think it needs to be. I'm gonna test that theory right now. So now that it's tack welded in there, we're going to run a bead right down the middle. I'm going to waver from side to side to make sure I get a good contact. Now as you can see, that weld didn't fill up that hole. It didn't fill up that V. You still see daylight underneath that level. You want your weld to hump up just a little bit above that. If you grind it off later, it's up to you. But a good strong weld is going to hump up just a little bit. So let's clamp this thing back up. Maybe run a pass over here, and then a pass on this side. See what they look like. Now that's filled up pretty good. It's higher than the metal. You can grind off the excess if you want. It's a nice 3-pass weld. It's a little bit much for this welder, but it'll still do it. You don't see a lot of penetration on the back side there. So let's clamp this thing back up and weld up that hole over there. See how that looks. So without there being a V to fill up, there's not much reason to weave back and forth. Do it a little bit coming across, but not too much. As you can see, that sunk down in there pretty good. It's a pretty hot weld right there. So I'm going to go back over it and fill that up, make it more flat with the top. It's got a nice little dome to it. Let's check out the underneath side and see what that looks like. As you can see, there's a lot of penetration back here. All that is weld. And that's because we had that huge gap to fill up. And we started at a thick point down here where you can see none of it got filled in because it's almost a ½ inch thick there. As we came up, it all heated up. And we got a lot of weld on the inside. Nice solid weld on the outside. So we welded this up two different ways. One with it V'd out, used 3 passes. One with a wide gap, used 2 passes. There's always a different way to weld something. You can weld any one project multiple different ways. Hopefully, this set of welding series that I'm putting out and showing different ways to weld, hopefully it gets you thinking on different ways to weld things together. Maybe you find a different way works better for you than it does for me. When you get into some thicker metals like this, you're probably going to want to V it out a little bit just to get good penetration, especially with channel iron. Get good penetration in the corners there where it's really thick. You don't need to buy an expensive welder. These 2 welders that I have, the older one that I bought in the 90s, the newer one that I bought 8 years ago, 10 years ago, they're rated to go up to a 1/4 inch. But you can weld thicker metal if you take the time and figure out how to get the penetration in there. So I hope this helps somebody out when they're trying to figure out how to weld something together. Be careful. The thicker metal is going to stay hot a lot longer than the thinner stuff. So don't go grabbing it without a pair of pliers. This right here is still pretty warm and I dunked it in some water outside. So be careful. Wear your safety equipment, gloves, welding helmet, mirror protection, eye protection. Have fun out there, guys. Go make something.